plan is to visit some of the abandoned buildings and adjacent infrastructure along an old railroad. The railroad is still operational, albeit the National Railway Transportation Company outsourced the passenger transit system to a private company. Thus, the line is still operational and trains still come and go. However, the state-owned infrastructure along this line is in various decay states. Some have been repurposed and act as living quarters, while some have been completely abandoned. My main objective is to reach close to the end of the line, as I've heard there is this beautiful railroad station made of red brick, completely abandoned. There are also some other structures still standing. The plan is to explore them and document along the way. I will spend the entire day on the road, and I plan to drive slowly so that I can enjoy the scenery. The road passes through a lot of villages, which in turn contributes to the perceived slowness of this trip. My destination is 170 kilometers far away from the starting point. In total, today I will drive the Pajero around 350 kilometers. The road crosses the railroad a lot of times as it curves around the hills. The railroad itself has a lot of curved sections, some wider and some narrower, even as narrow as around 350 meters radius. The line is mostly flat. The particularity is that there are a lot of viaducts and even a tunnel of 965 meters length. It's a beautiful winter day. We're on the 16th of December and the weather outside is sunny, with temperatures peaking at 9 degrees Celsius. I initially wanted to document the entire line and check out the tunnel, but the sun sets at around 17 p.m., thus greatly reducing my exploration time. I will limit myself to a few structures along the way, and I will avoid all those that are still populated. I will revisit this line during summer and try to cover as many railroad stations as possible. Even though the distance is technically not that big, I expect that in order to arrive to my destination, I will spend around 3 hours driving. By comparison, on the highway, 170 kilometers are to be driven in around an hour and a half. This is a good occasion to enjoy the Pajero. The engine is revving at around 1800 RPM at 80 kilometers per hour, producing a soothing hum. However, the noise made by the tires, that is another discussion altogether. The BF Goodrich all-terrain tires make a lot of noise. Despite this inconvenience, I like them a lot. I have them for around 3 years and they totaled about 25,000 kilometers, and they're still in good shape. These roads were recently modernized and the asphalt is in very good condition. I remember a few years ago things were looking worse as there were many dirt roads with gravel sections. These days, however, most villages are connected by paved roads. This part of the country has a lot of hills, Naturally, the road avoids most of them, creating a scenic view, especially in certain weather conditions such as fog, snow, or an autumn sunset. I've got neither of them, but I still like the view. I'm approaching the first objective that I want to document. In a few hundred meters, I'll be able to see it. The first stop is a small train station. My preliminary investigations shown that it looks quasi-abandoned. Let's check it out. Let's park the car right next to the station. Given it's a modern structure made of concrete, I don't expect much. But the lighting conditions outside allow me to take some nice pictures to illustrate that the time is static around this place. There was almost nothing notable of exploration, just a plain 1980s style concrete building. There were 2 locked doors, thus it appears that the station is still used, albeit there was no one present around the station. Let's continue the journey. Interestingly enough, the bridges didn't receive any new asphalt. Some of these roads don't even appear on the navigation system installed on the Pajero, but that is kind of expected, as the SD card that I have was last updated in 2015. Another railroad crossing, and it appears that this road sector is unpaved. To my right, there is another interesting railway station, but it looks still operational. I've seen some pictures of it, and it's worth documenting. But, as the time is past noon, and I have covered only half of the road to my destination, I will leave it for a further expedition. For now, I will skip it and continue my journey. Well, it looks like these trucks bring gravel to the storage area next to the road. See, that truck just finished unloading its cargo. I think they're working on completing this half a kilometer unpaved road. Let's allow this driver to advance so that he can position the truck for unloading. Perfect. Now I can overpass it. And there is the asphalt. Back on the road. Since I don't have much food with me, I will keep an eye open, well, technically both eyes, for a universal store in one of these villages. I plan to buy something to eat, something already prepared, or maybe even requiring cooking, as I do have the portable gas stove in the trunk. Most of these villages are built in a linear fashion, with houses on the left and the right of the road. But some of them have the houses built only on the higher ground side of the road, while the other side is shared with the riverbed. That is also the side where the railroad was built. There is another railroad crossing. And I believe the road to the right leads to another railway station. I will skip this one as well. The villages appear mostly empty, and that is because many of the younger inhabitants already left for the nearby cities, or they went to other countries. The remaining villagers are either at work, as I've seen tractors doing various activities out in the field, or are old enough to spend most of their time at home. make a stop right here and check on this rural store for something to eat, or at least to prepare. This was a nice red brick construction, but totally abandoned and possibly beyond repair. At least it wouldn't be profitable. The station is almost out in the field. There is a small village nearby. It doesn't appear anybody cares about this structure. I think it is left for decay on purpose. Most probably the roof will collapse first, and then what's gonna be left out of the red brick walls will stand for a long time. Or at least up until they get demolished by the authorities. This railway line follows the course of a small river, and naturally there are a lot of flood-prone areas. From time to time, I can see parts of the land completely flooded, even though there was no rain recently. I've seen a lot of abandoned houses throughout the villages that I passed through, some looking interesting for sure, but in daylight and surrounded by inhabited houses, I really have no chance of exploring them. It's around 10 degrees Celsius outside, and I'm glad the sun is still shining as I plan to spend a few hours outside of the vehicle. In addition, the lighting conditions are good for taking still pictures without a tripod. This is the last village that I will pass through in order to arrive where I want. straight through a field. Where I want to go is not exactly the end of the line. There are still 2 more stations, one intermediary and the other one the real end of the 608 line. There is also what appears to be an old serial reception base, derelict as well. There should be 4 large buildings used to store serials and various machinery. And possibly I'd find the remains of what would have been the administrative building. I'm curious to check these out. However, I fear that they're already void of any equipment of photographic value. At this point, my options are limited. It is almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's getting colder and the day draws to a close. I visited most of the still standing structures along the railway, and I avoided entering those with a high chance of collapse. As much as I want to visit the railway station structure, the lighting conditions are diminishing. In addition, a bunch of stray dogs are watching me curiously from a considerable distance. Thus, I decided it's time to end this expedition and hit the road back home. For sure, I will revisit this building at some point. But for now, this is it for today, at least in terms of exploration.